I'm Steve Corona, and this is the Dev Show.
There we go.
How about that?
It's starting with that. That's how the interview's gonna start.
We're gonna get fired. We're gonna be in so much trouble.
Yes, I want the Maserati. Yes, I won the Academy Award. I wanted it when I was 12, and I still want it to this day.
Steve, welcome to the Dev Show. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Right off the bat, okay, I want to ask you: have you ever considered doing voice work?
Yes, I've considered it, and I've done a fair bit myself.
You've done okay. What is there
Yeah.
anything that I would know?
Oh man, I've done so much. Mainly audiobooks. I did a
Right.
couple last year that were really really cool. You should check them out. Just search me up on Audible. Man, I've done some animation work, some commercial work. So just kind of like a lot of everything. I'm kind of one of those actors where you'll hear my voice and you might not recognize me right away, but I'm kind of everywhere.
Right.
So
I mean, you've got the voice for it. That's the first thing that I realized. Do a lot of people mention that?
yeah, yeah. I used to do interviews at radio stations for like theater shows I was in coming up, and the DJs always, off air after the interview, be like, "Man, you have a good voice for radio. You ever consider that?" And I'm like, "Why? Yes, I have. In fact, are you hiring?" Right? But I mean, like, I never was really into like being a radio DJ or anything, but I always knew that I kind of had this instrument that I could use and manipulate and play with. So, um, yeah, I mean, I knew a long time ago that this was going to be something that would help me out in my career for sure.
Sweet, awesome, man. Now I wanted to ask because I mean it's kind of an elephant in the room, but how did your year go with your last name?
Oh, right. Yeah, man. At first it was interesting because nobody knew anything. Like we were figuring it out as we went. And sometimes the kids at school were a little bit mean to my kids, like, "Oh, your last name's Corona. Like the virus is named after you. It's all your fault." And I'm like, where's the
Oh
science
man.
behind that? Like, what kind of logic is that? And then I have to remember, like, these are stupid little kids. But honestly, for me, it hasn't been a big deal. Mostly people kind of laugh it off and they're like, ooh, that must have been rough for you, this year with your name all over it. And so when I would tell people like it's Corona, like the beer, not the virus,
Yeah.
and then they'd laugh or whatever. But the coolest thing was actually this last year, 2020, in December, I got to be on set of a show called The Harder They Fall,
Oh,
also
nice.
with Netflix. Yeah,
Cool.
so cool. And the director, James Samuel, he also goes by The Bullets. That's his, musician name in London. He's a musical artist. And so I walked up to him first day on set, introduced myself. He's like, "Oh, what's your name?" I'm like, Steve. Steve what? Corona. He just looks at me. No, it's your year, mate. You know, it's your
Right.
year. So I thought that was funny. I kind of laughed it off. And he's
Yeah.
like, "Wait, if you're Steve Corona, then I'm Jimmy COVID." So we just kind of laughed about it. And it was like our inside joke on set.
Yeah.
Uh, so that was kind of fun.
It's like the perfect and the not perfect joke for a cocktail party.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like, is it too soon? I don't know. We're still living through it. So,
I know. Well, anyways, let's get dive into. I know it's past a little bit. It's not as recent now, but Army of the Dead. You got to work on that film. Came out on Netflix. I watched it. Great film. Great vision by Zack Snyder. What was it like working with him under his direction?
oh man, when I got the call that I booked the role, I was like, oh, dude, Zack Snyder, Justice League, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, right? Batman versus Superman, 300, like so many amazing films he's either
Right.
directed or produced, written. So I was just stoked, kind of as a already sort of a comic book movie, fan myself. Um, but I was just excited. I'm like, okay, what's it going to be like to actually work with him? I'd seen some of the behind the scenes footage from these other films he'd worked on. So I was just excited. And when I actually got to meet him, he was so cool, so laid back, so like he wanted to know my input. He was very collaborative, very interactive. He's like, okay, so here's what we need to shoot in the scene. Like, here's the angles I need to see. How do you want to play it?
Right.
I'm like, cool, this is great. Like I get to play, I get to be an actor. And a lot of times you work with directors where it's very like micromanaging, like you need to do this, you need to say it exactly like this. Let's move on, right? Especially for smaller roles. But Zach was really, really cool with everybody that I saw him work with. It was the same way. he wanted to know how we saw it evolving and how we planned on, playing the part. And it was really cool that we got to do that.
It's always good when you have a laid back director, someone who actually cares about your feelings, I guess.
Yeah.
But obviously it turned out great. It was a good success on Netflix. And you were mentioning that you're working with Netflix still now in New Mexico. What's the deal there? Can you spill some info?
Oh man, listen, I mean, all of us, New Mexico actors out here, we were so stoked. I mean, Netflix has been making movies here for years already,
Of course.
but they never officially had a studio. Then they took over the Albuquerque studios, they bought it, and they're expanding now. They're adding more sound stages. It's huge, and so they committed to I forget how many productions over the next like decade. So like they're here to stay. And I love them. I will
Hmm.
never cancel my Netflix subscription because they keep on hiring me. So why
Right.
would I, I got a little bit of loyalty there. They've cast me, I don't know, like 3 times in the last couple of years in various shows. So it's been fantastic. I love it. And the studio is amazing. I mean, it's top notch. It rivals
Okay.
anything in LA, honestly.
Yeah, it would be top notch, I guess. Eh? I haven't been on a Netflix studio myself. Is there? I don't know if there is one in Canada. I'm in Niagara Falls, Canada.
I think there is. I want to say
I'm
maybe in
sure there is.
Vancouver,
Maybe in Toronto.
possibly. Yeah.
You've played it. You've played an architect. You've played a nurse. You've played a groom, a bartender, a cowboy. The list goes on. Do you have a favorite?
I mean, it's always cool being able to be a part of a Disney film.
Right.
So when I got cast in The Lone Ranger, that was epic. But it was a little confusing because in the audition, I had like pages and pages of sides and, memorized tons of lines and very like interactive with one of the lead characters. And I was really stoked. And Jerry Bruckheimer's in the room. And then I booked it and I'm like, oh, this is going to be huge. And it still was. It was great. Gore Verbinski, fantastic director, visionary, just very much like Zack Snyder. Um, but then I found out my part was going to be completely silent. So
Right.
you'll see my mouth moving on screen, but it's all narrated over because it's during a flashback scene
Yeah.
where the chief is explaining, Tonto's past, and I'm a flashback character of one of the lead villains in the film.
Yeah.
So it was still tons of fun. Got to shoot in a lot of different locations, and it's Disney, so everything's epic and big, and it was really really cool. Like I really felt like I was in the movie, in this time
Hmm.
period. It's so surreal, and working with Johnny Depp. I mean,
Did you get to
like
have a
every actor's
conversation
dream.
or?
Yeah, yeah, it was really cool. So his last day of filming was actually one of my first days on set. And so he was going to be leaving. I'm like, man, if I don't talk to him now, I'm never going to have my chance, right? So I had a PA introduce me, and we just sat and chatted outside of his trailer for a few minutes. I told him how I was a big fan. I mean, my kids and I, we love the Pirates movies,
Of
and
course.
I just happened to have a copy with me, and I'm
Oh,
like,
no
yeah, I'm
way.
watching it in my trailer. He's like, oh, you want an autograph? I'm like, yeah. So I went and grabbed it real quick, and he's signing it. And he's like, how do you spell your daughter's name? So he actually wrote it out to my daughter, which is
Nice.
really cool. She was 3 at the time. She didn't know. But now she's looking back. She's like, wait, Johnny Depp wrote this out to me? Like I have his autograph. It's really cool. So
Yeah.
kind of a fun little, unintentional little gift there. So
And something to cherish too, definitely talking to Johnny Depp of all actors. I mean,
yeah,
can't get more A than that.
exactly. Very
Um,
prolific.
but you've worked with a wide range of actors. You also got to work with Aaron Paul. Did you get to have a conversation with him? What was it like working on? I'm sure it was fun. I don't know if you can go
Yeah.
fully into detail, but how was that
No, I can
conversation?
tell you. Yeah. So when I met him, because I'm playing this hospital orderly that wheels him out to the chair,
Yeah.
in the wheelchair out to the curb. Is season 3, episode 8. If you'd like to smoke, you need to be another 20 feet from the door.
Roll me further, bitch.
He just got beat up. He's got like this big swollen, eyeball, and it's a prosthetic. It looks real, of course, but
Yeah.
so I walk up to him, I introduce him. Hey, man, I'm the orderly. I'm going to be pushing you out to the curb, and we'll have this little conversation. He's like, yeah, cool, man. He's like, hey, let me give you some advice. I'm like, yeah, cool. Young actor. This is one of the first roles I ever booked.
Really?
I'm like, cool. I'll take all the advice I can get. Right. He's like, hey, if you ever have to wear one of these things, these prosthetics over your eye, don't open your eye underneath it. I'm like, okay. I'm like, that's random. And he told me, I guess he had it on the day previous. They were shooting part of, another scene that he had to still have this on.
Hmm.
And he said he accidentally opened his eye and he got an eyelash in, and it was like scratching his eyeball up all day. At the end of the day, when they took it off, it was like all bloodshot. So he's like, yeah, don't open your eye underneath these things. I'm like, solid advice, man.
Right on. That's
Yeah.
cool. What are you working on right now? We haven't really talked about that much.
Sure, sure. Well, actually, earlier this year in 2021, I got to play Sherlock Holmes, which was really cool.
Really?
Iconic character. Yeah.
Of course.
So I co-wrote a show for theater with the owner of a theater company here in Albuquerque, Sherry Costales, and so she and I, and also another good friend of ours, Kara Sowers, the three of us wrote this play because we realized, I think it was like 2014 when it was ruled that our Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and his Sherlock Holmes characters were now public domain, so anyone could do whatever they want with them. So we took an original Conan Doyle story and we just kind of put our own spin on it. We used a lot of the same characters, the same basic premise, but we moved the setting. So it was called the Adventure of the Norwood Builder, something like that. And we changed it from this guy, this rich architect from his mansion into a London theater, like circa 1910, around there. And so it was like this variety show, which is really cool because the theater company I did it with, they're a dance theater. So they were able to put a lot of really cool, dance elements into the show. And so we're solving this murder in a theater, in a London theater. So it was a lot of fun. So we originally staged it in 2017 when we first wrote it for theater. But then this year we put a little rewrite on it and we filmed it. So it's a filmed theater production. Lot of really good fun. Just being able to play Sherlock Holmes. I actually got approached by a fan who he collects Sherlock Holmes autographs. So actors who have played Sherlock Holmes. This guy, I'm like, how did he even find me? This is like this obscure kind of local production, but he's a detective. So he got to the bottom. He found me, and I sent him an autograph. It's really cool. I'm in his autograph book next to like Benedict Cumberbatch.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so that's been really awesome.
Sweet, man. That's really cool. Did you get to perform it in front of an audience?
No, so I mean, it was because it's COVID time still, so we filmed it just at the studio with just the cast and crew, and so there was no live audience there, which was kind of an interesting sort of combination of my theater background because we staged it like a theater show, but filmed. So there's the cameras, interfaces, and everything, which I'm used to from being on set, on films and TV shows. So for me, I loved it. I was like, cool, this is the best of both worlds. And a lot of the theater actors were like, oh, what's going on with this camera right here, so we had to kind of get them used to that. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Is that it for the film, and you just gonna leave it at a film, or would you ever kind of like to do it on a live stage?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've done it once already live. So this theater company, they kind of like cycle through their scripts. So I'm sure another maybe 4 years or so they'll have me come back and play Sherlock again. Yeah, that company does a lot of really cool shows. Sorry to take a little tangent here, but she also wrote another show, Sherry, called The Shoe Room. A really beautiful, kind of terrible show about World War II.
Right.
And so she visited the Holocaust Museum, and there's this room just full of shoes. And think about all the stories from the people who wore those at one point. And so she kind of made up some of it, but she also did a lot of historical research. And I played Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was, a pastor at the time in Germany, and he struggled with like, well, I'm a Christian, I follow God, and so I shouldn't be killing people, but at the same time, like, maybe there's a point when it's okay to plot against Hitler and take out one man and save millions of lives. And he and his family actually did save a lot of people, got them out of the country, had to sneak them out, all this kind of stuff. And it's kind of a heartbreaking show, but very important. And it was cool afterwards. So we did this live, and a 96-year-old lady came up to me after the show and shook my hand, and she thanked me. And she said, she thought she was seeing Dietrich Bonhoeffer again because she actually shook his hand, the actual Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He was in New York at one point, and she got to shake his hand, and she shook my hand. I was like, wow, this is crazy. Just like full circle, like the life force is passing, I don't know, but very kind of special thing to be a part of.
Well, it's probably, you must have felt, I don't know. I spoke with an author and an artist named Ashley Bryan in a documentary that I'm working on. And he is African American, and he stormed the beaches on D-Day. Well, the African Americans, they were sent in first to clear the landmines before the whites could come in because it was a segregated army. And I don't want to give too much out because you got to check out his book. But when they were returning home from France on the I don't know, I think it was a train. Once they got to the trains, the Nazis were in a higher class than the blacks. And so it just goes to show the craziness, like just how segregated it was, how unfair it was. But to get to my point, the feeling that you get when somebody that actually lived in those times comes to you and speaks to you is like so rewarding. And I'm sure you felt that.
Yeah, and just like humbling, like, wow, what a crazy life you've had. And
Mm-hmm.
for you to come and thank me for my art, like,
Yeah.
I'm humbled.
And it says something about you too. You know, you did a good job. I'm sure if you did a
I
terrible
hope
job, they
so.
wouldn't have said anything to you.
Yeah, they'd be like, okay, let's go home. Yeah.
But yeah.
Um,
On a lighter note, you said you're a big comic book guy too, right? Movies, comic book movies.
yes.
Did you have a preference between Marvel and DC? And I have another question after that. I know that's the
Okay.
hardest
All right.
question.
You know, that's a hard one because I love them both, to be honest. I mean, I'm a little biased. I always loved Marvel comics growing up. I was a big Doctor Strange fan,
Oh
my
yeah.
favorite. His name is Steven. My name is Steven. His last name is Strange. I'm Strange.
There you
So
go.
there, I had that connection. And then when Benedict Cumberbatch was playing him, I was like, oh my gosh, one of my favorite actors is playing one of my favorite characters. So I'm a little biased that way. But then I got to work with Zack Snyder, who's all about the DC universe. I'm like, oh man. So, I love both. I can't really say I love one more than the other. They're both awesome, and I love all of them. I think I've seen all of the comic book movies.
Right. So if you could get a role in one of the upcoming Marvel movies, we're just I'm just shooting random questions out
Ooh.
now. What movie would you like to be in? You gotta think though, who's directing it? What movie is it? Because there's Doctor Strange too, right? And that's directed by Sam Raimi, and that's gonna be freaking awesome because obviously I think you see my Spider-Man figures in the background. This is the
Yeah.
Raimi figures.
Yeah.
So what one would you want to be in?
Well, you already said it. I
Oh
mean,
man, I'm sorry.
anything Doctor Strange. Obviously, I can't play Doctor Strange because that role's already taken.
I mean the
But
multiverse,
anything,
man.
yeah, right.
The
Hey, I could
multiverse.
be a alternate version of
You
Doctor
could
Strange or
you could
something.
play Doctor Strange.
I
Do
think
it
so.
for sure.
I mean, other than that, like I always wanted to be in a Spider-Man movie growing up too. Same
Right.
thing as you, Sam Raimi fan, the original Tobey Maguire, franchise. I loved it growing up. So, man, it's too hard for me to pick. I mean, maybe if you give me some options, I could throw them at you. But right now, I would say any of the comic book movies, I would be thrilled to be in any of them.
Right. Cool. Have you gotten to travel quite a bit with your career, or?
Funny enough, actually, most of the work I've done has been here in New Mexico.
Okay.
I only actually traveled out of state for Lone Ranger. Yeah, Disney flew me out to LA to shoot part of that, but then part of it was actually shot here in New Mexico on location too, and part of it in Colorado. So it's kind of all over the place for that one. But yeah, I mean, the work is here. It's been sustaining, enough that I can just work as a local from New Mexico. So I haven't had to travel too much. No, I'll travel for pleasure, for family vacations and things, but not a lot for work, honestly. And being a voice actor as well. I got the microphone right here. I'm in my studio, so I work from home all the time. So I'm cool with that.
Absolutely. I was gonna ask, is there any place that you would like to see or like to go and act in? Do you like to
I mean, I
travel?
get a little jealous. Yeah, I get a little jealous sometimes when my actor friends are like, "Oh, I just got back from Morocco," or wherever. I'm like, "Well, that's awesome." Or I can't think, like, where do they do a lot of productions over there? I mean, anywhere in Europe would be amazing. Spain, England, Germany is gorgeous. Italy, Canada. I'd love to come to Canada. Eh?
Hey, yeah, come over to Canada, get some Timmies, play some hockey, do the Canadian
I would
things.
love. What is that? Poutine? Is that what it's called?
Poutine or Putin? Don't want to
Poutine?
half.
Yeah.
And it's half and half. You kind of want to.
Okay.
You just got to go in the middle. Poutine.
I mean, that looks amazing. What do you got? Like a plate of fries and some cheese curds and gravy, and like, what's not to like, right?
Have you? So you're saying you've never had poutine?
I've never had it. It looks amazing.
Oh man. Well, we gotta
You gonna
get you.
send me a plate?
Man, I don't know
Might
how
not
well it
keep it in
tastes
the.
that through the mail, but
Yeah, it'd be a little soggy.
So do you write?
I do. Yeah, I've written a couple of feature films that are being shopped around. Co-wrote, this Sherlock Holmes show that I
Yeah.
told you about. Yeah, so mostly I collaborate. I don't actually write a lot on my own. It's mostly like a friend will come to me and be like, "Hey, man, you're funny or you're good with dialogue.
Mm,
You want to come and work on this thing with me?" And so, yeah, I'll sit down and hammer out some scripts.
cool, cool.
Sure,
Do you want to tell us a little bit of your story of how you came to the realization that I want to act?
sure. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's funny. People from Milwaukee, they drop the L and they just say Milwaukee.
Right.
Uh, rolls right off the lips, Milwaukee.
Milwaukee.
So I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and fourth of five kids, and I was always sort of the entertainer of the family, cracking jokes, telling little stand-up comedy things, and I always knew I wanted to be some kind of performer, actor, and so I just always had a love for it. There was this cool atmospheric theater in Milwaukee. It was called the Avalon Theater. It was really cool. You walk in, it looks like you're under the stars, like the ceiling is painted and it's
Why
got
have
like
I heard of that?
twinkling lights. Have you heard of it?
Avalon. The word Avalon I've heard of. The Avalon Theater. Is that a famous theater?
I mean, it's one of a handful of these kind of atmospheric, like it was built, I think, during the Art Deco period, really cool, like stylized, golden age of movies sort of thing. So that was always sort of romantic to me, like, wow, this is cool. Like I'm stepping back in time every time I go to watch a movie, and I would see the movies on the screen and they just captivated me and like
Right.
spoke to me in a way that they didn't to anyone else in my family. They're like, yeah, that was fun. I'm like, oh, that was so cool. Like I want to go to Jurassic Park now. And I want to be one of the actors on the screen who affects other people in the audience the way that these actors are affecting me. So I always wanted to do it. And then I pursued it, went to college, moved to Minnesota, met my wife there, which is, of course, great, and graduated from Minnesota State University with my master's degree in theater acting, which is kind of ironic. They didn't really have a film program, but I always wanted to get into film. So I
Mm-hmm.
love theater, but I also love film. And I'm like, okay, now where do I move? LA, New York, maybe Chicago. And my dad had moved down to New Mexico ahead of me. He's like, New Mexico is kind of a well kept secret. You ought to come check it out. I'm like, sweet, okay. I only ever intended it to be a stopover on my way to LA. And here I
Mm.
still am, 15 years later. I was in 2006. So moved down to New Mexico, got the agent, started doing the auditions, got to know the casting directors. I dialects in college, and I loved it. It like really spoke to me. I was like, whoa, this is cool. Like, I always grew up as one of those kids who could just mimic and
Right.
like do the thing and like, oh, look, I'm doing an English accent,
Yeah.
or whatever. And I could just jump into it. So it was a kind of a natural skill. But then when I learned, I'm like, whoa, there's like a method for learning this and
Mm-hmm.
kind of visually like breaking it down. Really, really cool to me. So I learned dialects. I spent like a whole year in grad school learning it for myself as an actor. But then I got down here and I got the chance to actually use it as a coach. I'm like, oh, never thought about that before. So there was a film shooting here called Gamer, starring Gerard Butler.
Oh, I did
And
see a picture of you and Gerard Butler.
yes, yes. So I got a call and they're like, hey, we're doing this film and there's a Scottish actor. Maybe you've heard of him. His name's Gerard Butler. I'm like, yes, of course. Right. Totally stoked. I'd seen him in 300. I'm like, this is awesome. So they brought me on and I started coaching him. He had to do an American accent and he sounded very Scottish. He had to really tone it down a lot. So I had to help him with his American. And so from there, I got to work with Helen Mirren, got to be her coach, just totally, mind blowing. I'm like, this is crazy. So I've sort of followed both paths, the dialect coaching and the acting at the same time. And so both of those kind of together have really helped me in the New Mexico film industry. So there you go.
Sweet. Cool. Is there anything that you want to promote, like your personal pages or website, stuff
Yeah.
like that? Give you the floor.
It was a bad year for a lot of people in business, especially like
Mhm.
retail spaces, physical businesses. But I actually started a business. I launched a business online because I saw the need. I saw a lot of actors who were now not being able to get on sets, or theater actors who the theaters were shut down. They couldn't go do their craft and they were transitioning into voiceover,
Mm.
but they didn't have the training, right? They only had the
Right.
background in theater or film. So I thought, well, I've been doing, voiceover for years, about 15, 16 years at that point. And I've actually been teaching classes as well. But at that point, I was teaching at a school physically. And I thought, well, I can do this online. Why not? So I launched a business called Southwest Voices, southwestvoices.com. And I teach, audiobook narration and dialects. And my partner, Michelle, she teaches animation and commercial and, video games. It's really, really cool. So we're teaching kind of this new wave of actors how to use their voices. They already have the acting training.
Mhm.
Now it's adding the voice acting specifically and how to interact with the mic. And it's really, really been cool. And we've been seeing a lot of actors flood through the gates. So I'm loving it.
That's awesome. Do you think I could do it? You think I got the voice for it?
Listen,
Maybe.
here's the thing. Listen, Devin, I tell everybody that if you really want to do it, first of all, that's the thing. You got to want to do it. You got to have the passion and the commitment to do it. Because if
Mhm.
you're not going to put the time into it and you don't actually love it, don't waste your time because it can be very difficult. It can be a challenge, just like acting. I mean,
Of
getting on
course.
camera is not easy either, right? But so if you love it and you're willing to put the time into it, yes, absolutely, you have a voice for it. With all the different genres, there's e-learning, there's audiobooks, video games, commercials. It's everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So you just have to find kind of what your genre is or genres, multiple,
Mhm.
possibly. And then, yeah, man, just buckle down and do it.
Absolutely. Well,
Let's talk. I know a
let's
guy.
talk. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Would you say, the standard? I'm Steve Corona, and this is the Dev Show. But you choose the voice. You choose. You choose
Oh, okay. Let's see. We can be
accent.
very sophisticated. I'm Steve Corona, and this is the Dev Show.
There we go.
How about that?
There. It's starting with that. That's how the interview's gonna start. It's
I
gonna
love
go.
it.
It's gonna go over my intro.
Listen, I'll give you a couple, and you choose what you like. All right, let's see.
Okay.
All right, all right. Let's go. Let's go Scottish. Since my good friend Gerard Butler. All right. I'm Steve Corona, and this is the Dev Show.
Beautiful.
Uh, maybe let's try like a little like German. Yeah. Let's. Okay. So I'm Steve Corona. Yeah, and this is the Dev Show. You should watch it.
How many accents do you know?
Man, I don't know. I lost track. People would ask me that, and it used to be like, I don't know, like 10, 15, 20. And I
Mhm.
just learn. I love learning so much. So I keep adding them to my repertoire and I keep doing like I'm in and out all day. Ask my kids. They're like, oh, there goes dad again. Is he Irish? Is he French today? I don't know. Who knows? So I probably can do like about maybe 30 just at the drop of a hat, which is really helpful in auditions. Um, hey, can you actually do that in a Southern drawl? Wow, yes, I can. Sure. Right. Or, whatever. Can you do it like a New Yorker? Yeah, of course I can. Oh, hey, look over here. So, here's what I say. You tell me the dialect you want me to do. I've told this to casting and they know that I can actually deliver on it. So they're like, "Can you do this like if we call you back, can you do it in like a, you know, French accent or something
Mhm.
or something I haven't maybe done in a while?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, give me like if you can give me a day, then I can come back and do it for you." And they're like, "Okay, great." And they know I can. Other actors they'd be like, "Yeah, sure. Right. A day and you're going to come back and do it." But just because I've learned kind of the method of learning it and
Right.
how to be able to jump into it. So,
So give me the French then, because we're
okay.
French up here, right? So
Oh, oui,
Canada.
oui, of course. All right. So I am Steve Corona, and this is the Dev Show.
Very good. I have to say, my papa is so French. There's like a little language barrier, but not much. That's good. That's good. Hey, très bien.
Thank you very much.
Um,
It was a lot of fun.
do you want to shout out your social medias before I wrap up?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. So on Instagram and Twitter, I am at the Steve Corona. That's a good way to find me. I'm also on Clubhouse under let's see, what am I there? I'm Super Steve. So find me on Clubhouse. I'd love to chat you up, man.
Thank you guys for watching the Dev Show. This is Steve Corona. You make sure to subscribe below. Hit the button, hit the like button. I don't like asking for this stuff, so you know what to do. I'm Devin, and I'm out.